Hank's secretary ruined a cooperation project worth hundreds of millions. After I learned about it, I summoned the shareholders and forced her to be fired. Later, Hank became the richest man, but he tortured me for a lifetime because he couldn't be with his secretary. In this new life, I watched coldly as he flirted with his secretary, and his family went from being the richest to being deeply in debt. The tender we submitted was only 100,000 yuan less than that of Hank's family. The bidding was over, and Hank's family didn't win the land in the North District. The content of the tender documents was almost a one-to-one reproduction, which could basically be defined as information leakage. Yo-Yo's eyes were red. It's all my fault. I'll bear all the losses. Shareholder Mr. Tang snorted coldly. Bear the losses? This is a project involving hundreds of millions. With your salary, you won't be able to pay it back even in 10 lifetimes. Yo-Yo swayed and seemed on the verge of falling. Hank couldn't bear to watch it anymore. Enough. He pulled Yo-Yo behind him. Mr. Tang, at your age, how can you be so hard on a young girl? Mr. Tang slammed the cup in his hand onto the table. Hank, what do you mean? As a shareholder, can't I criticize my subordinates? Even if I call the police to arrest her and fire her, it's my right. I'll take on all the responsibilities. I promise that in the next quarter. Hank blurted out. No. You can't call the police, and you can't fire her. All the quarrels flooded into my mind, and I realized that I had been reborn. I was reborn on the day when Yo-Yo was fired. In my previous life, Hank and I were childhood sweethearts. Both Hank's family and Jolin's family started from scratch, so when we were children, our parents were always too busy to be seen. Hank and I were like two poor little things relying on each other, stumbling and supporting each other as we grew up. Since Hank's mother didn't have a daughter, she liked me very much. She decided to give me 5% of the shares of Hank's family. If Hank and I developed feelings for each other in the future, our two families would become in-laws. If there were no feelings, we would become brother and sister. Year after year passed like this until Hank fell in love with the newly recruited secretary. This secretary was Yo-Yo. Compared to me, who was emotionally stable, Yo-Yo was much more impetuous. When making coffee for Hank, she accidentally added 3 times the amount of sugar. Then when Hank was choked by the sweetness, she playfully told him, "Drinking something sweet will make you happy." Once during a meeting, she accidentally put the wrong documents. After realizing the mistake, in order to get the correct documents into the meeting room, she rented a set of dolls and pretended to be cleaning up the trash to squeeze into the meeting room. Then she accidentally tripped and spilled all the trash on the client's feet. There were countless similar incidents. But Hank was amused by her and just thought she was extremely cute. After I learned about it, I proposed to Hank to fire Yo-Yo. Hank said, "Yo-Yo's family is not well off. She needs this job. There's nothing that can't be learned, and the rules aren't that rigid. You, a young lady who has never worked, should stop meddling." I was unhappy to hear that, but I didn't fall out with him on the spot. All right, then let her learn. Nobody expected that this was just the beginning of Yo-Yo's mistakes. Later, ruining projects and offending clients became her regular operations. She even accidentally leaked the bidding budget, resulting in the loss of a project worth hundreds of millions. In my previous life, I couldn't sit still any longer. I decisively made an appointment with the second largest shareholder, Mr. Tang, and forced Yo-Yo to be fired. Yo-Yo, who lost her job, was heartbroken about the big city and left without saying goodbye. She went back to her village and, following her family's arrangement, married a supermarket owner 5 years older than her. By the time Hank found her again, she was already the mother of 3 children. She didn't even meet Hank once. Hank was extremely sad and thought that everything was my fault. He suppressed his sadness, pursued me, married me, and tortured me for a lifetime. He said that I had ruined their happiness and that he would make sure that I would never be happy for the rest of my life. But was it all my fault? Yo-Yo was the one who ruined the project worth hundreds of millions. It was her own decision to go back to the village and to get married. She made her own decisions. Why should she blame me? Moreover, Hank's family was thriving and had a bright future. It was never a right decision for Hank to shield a troublemaker in the company, but in this life, I figured it out. Although I'm not at fault, I don't plan to interfere in all this anymore. Hank has to walk his own path in the future. He has to bear the consequences of his own decisions. I'll have nothing to do with him from now on. Jolene, will never interfere in any of his affairs again. The two argued for a long time. Finally, Hank signed a bet agreement to keep Yo-Yo. I followed Mr. Tang and left without saying a word. After that, I didn't pay much attention to Hank's affairs. I just occasionally heard about the glorious deeds of Hank's family. People in the circle even gave them a title, saying it was called the arrogant president and the charming secretary. I was joked about as the vicious female supporting role in their president romance story. Maybe I was really like that in my previous life, but in this life, I won't interfere in their relationship. Relying on the memories of my previous life, I fought my way out in the business circle, getting up earlier than chickens and going to bed later than dogs every day. I really don't know how those presidents in novels have so much free time. The next time I saw Hank was at a banquet. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I could hardly believe that the arrogant Hank would lower his head and smile apologetically at the banquet. It seemed that it wasn't a rumor that Hank's family had been on a downward slope, that the company was on the verge of bankruptcy. However, where was the little secretary who used to be always by his side? Before I could wonder about it, a cry of surprise suddenly came from a corner, attracting everyone's attention. In the crowd, Yo-Yo was wearing waiter's clothes, with red eyes, helplessly squatting on the ground to pick up glass fragments. Opposite her was the host of the banquet, Mandy, the daughter of the Mandy family group, who was dressed up to attend the banquet. The new haute couture dress she was wearing was now stained with red wine, looking extremely embarrassed. "Are you blind? Do you know how much my dress is worth? Can you afford to pay for it if you spill something on it?" Perhaps stimulated by her sharp accusation, Yo-Yo, who was squatting, suddenly stood up. "I've already said I'm sorry. What else do you want from me? Do you want me to kneel down and kowtow to beg the young lady to let me go before you're satisfied?" As her words fell, there was an uproar at the scene. Yo-Yo looked pitiful and had the appearance of a stubborn and resistant little white flower, which made everyone discuss it with great interest. Just like the two men beside me, they began to think that Mandy was being aggressive and unreasonable. I chuckled softly, put down the wine glass in my hand and walked over. If saying sorry was useful, what would the police be for? Yo-Yo was choked by my words, and the tears in her eyes became even more obvious. Finally, Hank, who was socializing in the distance, noticed that something was wrong and pushed his way through the crowd. "Yo-Yo, why are you here?" Oh, it turned out that Yo-Yo came here without Hank's knowledge. I thought Hank had finally come to his senses and fired her. With Hank's arrival, the tears in Yo-Yo's eyes finally fell. I thought I could come and help you, but I didn't have an invitation, so I could only. Her voice became lower and lower, but everyone present understood. She had sneaked in by pretending to be a waiter. I raised my eyebrows and looked at Mandy. "Does your family hire temporary waiters for the banquet? Is it so easy to sneak in?" Mandy's face darkened. "Jolene." I put my hand to my mouth and made a zipping gesture, then shut my mouth. Only then did Mandy's face look a bit better. Then she remembered something, raised her chin and pointed at Yo-Yo, looking smug. "Come to think of it, you and Hank were childhood sweethearts but suddenly fell out. Was it because of this woman?" Before I could reply, Hank took 2 steps forward and came in front of us. "I apologize to you on Yo-Yo's behalf. She didn't mean it. Please, Mandy, be lenient wherever possible." Mandy snorted coldly and was about to say something when I stopped her. I pointed at the dress on her body. "Since President Hank said so, he must give you this face. But this dress has to be compensated for, right?" Hank agreed. "Okay, I'll compensate for her." I nudged Mandy, and Mandy rolled her eyes and said, 3,000,000 yuan. After hearing that, Hank froze on the spot. I noticed that he clenched and unclenched his fists. The financial situation of Hank's family had deteriorated to such an extent. In the past, Hank wouldn't even blink an eye when it came to 3,000,000 yuan, let alone 30,000,000 yuan. So, Was this the consequence of his indulgence of Yo-Yo? It was really crazy. Maybe this was what they called true love. 3 million yuan? Yo-Yo exclaimed, can't you just wash it if it's dirty? If it can't be machine washed, I'll wash it by hand. Why should we pay for it? Mandy widened her eyes. Wash it? Are you kidding? Is it still haute couture after being washed? If just one diamond falls off after washing, the whole dress will be ruined. Understand? People around nodded one after another, quite agreeing with Mandy's words. Some even stood up to speak for fairness. That's true. It's not that Miss Mandy is deliberately making things difficult for you. After all, it was you who dirted her dress. Paying for it is the basic thing to do. She definitely can't afford it. Otherwise, why would they be stuck here? Isn't Hank here? Is Hank's family that bad off? Haven't you heard? Hank's family is not doing well now. Hank was emitting a cold aura and roared, enough. What does it have to do with you? He grabbed me and pulled me a few steps outside. I was staggered by him and quickly broke free. Hank, what are you doing? He pursed his lips and lowered his voice. Jolin, for the sake of our past relationship, could you lend me 10 million yuan first? I promise that as soon as the funds are turned around, I'll pay you back immediately. I raised my eyebrows in disbelief. You're borrowing money from me? Hank seemed to think of something and tightly grasped my arm. Yes. Jolin, you're a business genius. I know you've made a lot of money in the past few months. 10 million yuan is nothing to you. I murmured that word and just found it funny. I've never been a business genius. I'm just a lucky person who took advantage of being reborn and seized the opportunity first. In my previous life, Hank was the real business genius. It was precisely because of this reason that after Hank's mother passed away, Hank's father confidently handed the company over to Hank, who had just graduated. Moreover, at that time, because Hank missed Yo-Yo, he threw himself wholeheartedly into work to numb himself. Sometimes he even traveled between 3 cities in a day for projects. After he ascended to the position of the richest man, the media interviewed his assistant. His dense and busy schedule shocked the whole internet, and netizens gave him the title of workaholic. Everyone said, "We don't envy you at all for making money." In this way, Hank reached the height he deserved with 70% talent and 30% hard work. However, he didn't want all of this. All he wanted was love. He wanted to be with Yo-Yo forever. I end this life, I will make all of this come true for him. I shook off Hank's hand again. I can afford 10 million yuan, but I don't want to lend money to someone who seems unable to pay it back. Hank's face flushed red. Jolin. What do you mean? Why do you think I can't pay it back? I sneered. With the situation of the Hank family, how could I trust you? Besides, if you need to borrow money, you can apply for a bank loan. I don't have the obligation to lend it to you. Hank's eyes were full of disappointment. With our friendship for so many years, how can you suspect me like this? Using benefits to measure our relationship, do we really have to be so estranged? It's just 10 million yuan, but you won't even lend it to me. I shook my head. Hank, when it comes to borrowing money, friendship doesn't count. It's like an investment. Who would invest in a project that has no return? I've made a lot of money, but I'm not a fool. Please face this fact. I didn't say anything more to Hank and walked quickly back to Mandy. Mandy glanced at Hank with a look of disgust. President Hank, how's it going? If you keep dawdling, you won't be able to maintain your domineering CEO image. Yo-Yo worriedly took Hank's arm. Hank, are you okay? We won't pay this money. Why should we listen? Pay. Hank's Adam's apple bobbed up and down, and his voice was hoarse. Give me 3 days, and I'll definitely transfer the money to Mandy's card on time. Mandy clicked her tongue. All right. After the matter was resolved, the onlookers around also dispersed. I looked at Yo-Yo, who was still complaining, and Hank, whose complexion wasn't good, and couldn't help but give a piece of advice. Hank, you chose to attend the banquet by yourself today, without bringing a secretary or a female companion. This means that you've already made a choice in your heart. Don't be indecisive. I paused and gave him another idea. If you really like her, you can also support Yo-Yo to engage in other jobs. You don't necessarily have to be together. After saying this, I turned around and left without looking back. If Hank took my advice and fired Yo-Yo at this time, the Hank family might be able to turn things around. On the third day after the banquet, Mandy received the money transferred by Hank. She brought afternoon tea and deliberately ran to my company to gossip. "Jolene, guess if Yo-Yo was fired or not?" I pushed aside her excited face with my index finger. "No." Mandy sat down disappointedly. "What? You already knew? It seems that you've broken off relations, but in fact, you've still been caring all along? However, it's understandable. After all, the two of them grew up together. With such a deep relationship, it's a bit hard to watch Hank squander his family's fortune like this." I shook my head. I didn't inquire about it. The same choice in both lives, an expected outcome. Although I answered no according to the result of the previous life, I still felt a bit melancholy after Mandy affirmed my answer. I touched my heart and gently comforted myself. "Jolene, you've done everything you can. Whether in the previous life or this life, you've lived up to yourself and the Hank family." Mandy talked about a few more gossips in the circle before stopping to check her mobile phone. Suddenly she exclaimed, "Jolene, the incident at the banquet has been posted online, and we're being cyberbullied. Asking a girl to pay 3 million yuan just for a dress? That's pushing her to the edge of death. They're already so rich but still so fussy. That girl has already apologized like this. If she could afford it, would she come to work as a waitress? They're really bullying others with their power, acting like a high and mighty little princess who doesn't understand the hardships of the common people. She has no idea how miserable others will be because of her words. Seriously, if one's mentality isn't good, a debt of 3 million yuan can directly ruin a family. She's still a girl. I can't believe what she would do if she couldn't pay it back in the end. Whoa, I'm on the verge of crying. Sister, please don't do anything stupid. Don't pay this money. Folks, we found out who these two are. Let's boycott their products. We resolutely won't consume them. Agree with the above. We won't buy. Why should they earn our money, enjoy a luxurious life, and make things difficult for ordinary people?" Mandy was so angry at the online comments that she was almost about to smash up my office. What do these netizens mean? It was my dress that was ruined, and I suffered financial losses. What's wrong with asking Yo-Yo to pay for it? And the common people? Aren't we all? I'm not an official bullying others with power. Why are these netizens like this? I scrolled through the comments and comforted Mandy. I'm afraid these are all paid trolls. As soon as someone speaks up for us, there will be dozens of comments immediately taking Yo-Yo's side. Mandy cursed angrily. I'm so angry. I'm so angry. Aren't they just paid trolls? I can hire them too. I stopped her. Don't hire paid trolls for now. Find someone to get the hot topic removed first. This matter isn't suitable to be made a big deal. Each side has its own reasons. Moreover, most netizens can empathize with Yo-Yo more easily, and it's hard for them to think from our perspective. After saying that, I put away my mobile phone and stood up. Let's go, Miss Mandy. Let's go find Yo-Yo. I suspect she's the one behind this. Mandy was confused. Huh? Does she have such ability? I shrugged. Who else could it be? The female lead in the novel is just waiting for us two evil supporting characters to cause trouble for her. Mandy was on the verge of breaking down. Why am I the evil supporting character? Who on earth likes this kind of weak and innocent female lead? While talking, I had already walked out of the office, and Mandy quickly caught up. Hey, Jolene, wait for me, miss. I couldn't help teasing her. Isn't it this old lady this time? It's this young lady. Jolene, I want to take back that sentence. It's your female-led story. I want to be your #1 sidekick. The protagonist must be you. I don't want to be the evil supporting character. I declare this is your. I interrupted Mandy with a mixture of laughter and helplessness. It's also your female lead story, so Miss Mandy, can we stop dawdling? Coming. President Jolene, charge forward for me. I used to come to the Hank family often, so the front desk didn't ask many questions and directly let me and Mandy go upstairs. All the secretaries in the secretary's office were extremely busy, but Yo-Yo was idle, making coffee. Mandy went upstairs. It seemed that although Hank hadn't fired her, he didn't dare to use Yo-Yo either. He was treating her like a mascot in the company. However, it was really hard to say whether she was really lucky or not. Mandy rushed over directly and slapped the table. Yo-Yo, what do you mean? You posted the video of the banquet online. Did you get the consent of the host, me? Yo-Yo shrank her head. I don't know what Mandy is talking about. I shook my phone. Yo-Yo, all the traces on the internet can be traced. Do you think we came to you without checking anything? Yo-Yo became angry out of embarrassment and suddenly stood up. I said it's not me, and it's not me. If you have evidence, call the police. And even if I posted it, so what? The video wasn't edited randomly. It just told what happened that night normally. The reason why everyone helped me and scolded you is that the netizens have discerning eyes. Mandy sneered. Discerning eyes? It was clearly you who hired paid trolls and got people to set the pace. Yo-Yo's face turned pale, and she sat down to avoid the topic. I don't understand what you're saying. If there's nothing else, please ask Mandy to leave. I want to continue working. Mandy was choked. I stopped Mandy and shook my head at her, then looked at Yo-Yo. Whether it was Yo-Yo who posted it or not, I hope Yo-Yo will come forward and disclose the truth. Tell the netizens that the money didn't end up becoming your debt in the end. Yo-Yo refused without hesitation. Why should I listen to you? Isn't Hank's money money? It's a pity that you grew up with Hank. Can't you bear to see him doing well? Hearing her words, Mandy's anger flared up again. What do you mean? Isn't my money money? Was it my fault that my dress was ruined by you? Fine, if you don't clarify, I'll clarify it myself. I gave you some face, but you really think Mandy cursed and then dragged me to leave? You're something. Don't be so pretentious. Seeing this, I suddenly had no idea either. I came to find Yo-Yo. One reason was to trick her a bit, and the other was that I thought if she came forward to explain, the effect would be better. If we explained, we couldn't completely calm things down, and the netizens would still think Yo-Yo was pitiful. But now it seemed that Yo-Yo didn't intend to cooperate and clarify. Then we could only find evidence to prove that Yo-Yo directed and acted in all of this by herself, which could also calm things down. After all, judging from her state just now, it was basically confirmed that she did it. Wait. Yo-Yo called us back. I looked at her in confusion. If you're willing to invest in the new project of the Hank family and return the 3 million yuan, I can come forward to clarify. Mandy couldn't believe her ears and dug them a bit. Are you crazy or are we crazy? Is that possible? Yo-Yo was very confident. I know you need me. My request isn't excessive, right? 3 million yuan as public relations fees isn't expensive for you at all, right? Investing in the projects of the Hank family is to make money together. It's still a good deal for you, isn't it? Well, it's a good suggestion. Please don't make such suggestions next time. Although I didn't know where Yo-Yo's confidence came from, it didn't affect my refusal. After saying that, I took Mandy and left. Before we had walked 2 steps, we bumped into Hank, who had just finished a meeting. Hank was a bit shocked when he saw me. Jolin, why are you here? Seeing Hank, Yo-Yo immediately rushed over and quickly told him what had happened. She concluded aggrievedly, I was happy to help, but I'm the victim. What's wrong with getting some money? Hank patted her head. Yo-Yo, we shouldn't have taken this money. Listen to Jolin and go online to explain it. Yo-Yo's eyes widened instantly. Why shouldn't we take it? Hank, I've been doing everything for you. You only have your Jolin in your eyes. Have you ever thought about how aggrieved I am? Hank explained in a flustered manner. No? I know you're also aggrieved, but it's really our fault. We've already given the money back. We're just stating the result after the matter is over. This is not only for Jolin and the others but also to explain it to you, to clarify that you don't have any debts now. After hearing Hank's words, Yo-Yo's eyes turned red and tears streamed down her face. Hank, you know clearly whether you're doing this for me or for Jolin. I thought that with our relationship, you would support me unconditionally. I didn't expect that I was just being self-sentimental. She wiped her tears with her hand abruptly. Also, you've never said that we're boyfriend and girlfriend. After all, President Hank, I'm just not good enough for you. After saying that, Yo-Yo couldn't hold back anymore. She covered her face and ran away crying. Hank's face changed drastically. Ignoring the documents in his hand, he immediately chased after her. Yo-Yo, that's not what I meant. Listen to me explain. The figures of the two disappeared from our sight, and Mandy and I looked at each other in dismay. Mandy couldn't help complaining, are they crazy? Did I just watch a live-action TV drama? I patted Mandy's shoulder. I just want to say that being speechless isn't my mother tongue. Please leave me alone. I walked forward and pressed the elevator button, then went downstairs to the lobby. Mandy couldn't help but continue to complain, I'm so embarrassed that I could dig a castle out with my toes. Oh my God, I'm so damn embarrassed for others. Shh. I interrupted Mandy's complaint and pointed to a group of people coming towards us. The leader of them was a chubby guy. He was holding a big box and didn't lower his voice. I'm really speechless. Just because I handed in a wrong document, Yo-Yo asked the HR department to fire me. This company might as well change its surname to Shen. A girl asked in confusion, does Yo-Yo have such great power? Of course not. It's just that she has already regarded herself as the mistress of the Hank family. The HR manager, just to flatter her, fired me without hesitation. This seemed to open the floodgates, and some people began to speak up boldly. To be honest, since Yo-Yo came, our company has been in a mess. Some time ago, she also fired a cleaning aunt. The aunt was doing a great job and cleaned very cleanly. I don't know what mistake she made to offend Yo-Yo and was directly fired. I think it's only a matter of time before the Hank family goes bankrupt. I heard several leaders complaining that many projects haven't been won, those employees couldn't get their performance bonuses, and their salaries were cut in half. I'm also considering whether to change jobs. I have to do it before the company goes bankrupt. The voices of the discussion gradually faded away, and I curled my lips and smiled lightly. I have a good idea to solve this. Yo-Yo likes to be on the hot search, right? I'll give her another one. Suddenly, a couple became extremely popular all over the internet. The title of the video was, Novel Comes to Life. The mighty CEO turned out to be a pure love warrior. These keywords directly made the video go viral on the hot search. Due to the extremely high appearance of the male and female protagonists, both those who liked this kind of thing and those who didn't went crazy. Is this the promotion of a TV series? Being a love fool is the best dowry for a man. The key is that he's a mighty CEO. I won't say who's envious and crying. Beautiful lady, please open a class. I'll study hard. I hope I can meet a pure love CEO like this. Guys, this beautiful lady looks so familiar. Isn't she the heroine who poured red wine at the banquet and owed 3 million? Seeing this, I knew that netizens had already connected all the information. I asked Mandy to expose the record of Hank's transfer and hired a group of online trolls to drive the trend, hugging myself pitifully. The story of the pampered wife in novels has come to life. Before, I was worried that she would go astray because of owing 3 million. After knowing the truth, I, with a monthly salary of 3,000, couldn't help crying. No wonder that young lady was asked to pay 3 million. It turns out that it's a necessary part of the relationship progress between the CEO and his pampered wife. Debt transfer. CEO, woman, if you can't pay it back, you'll. Hee hee. Forced love is awesome. Those people who love reading novels came here as soon as they got the news. After such a series of operations, the video was directly pushed to the hot search. The second one on the hot search was the banquet video that Yo-Yo had posted before. At this time, no netizens were scolding Mandy and me anymore. Some even felt sorry for our roles as the vicious female supporting characters and came to support the products of the Jolin family and the Mandy family. Mandy didn't understand. Jolin, although no one scolds us now, it also helps Yo-Yo. Both she and Hank have become famous. Being famous is never a good thing. After becoming famous, their past and every move will be dug out. Speaking of this, I paused, swiped my finger on the screen, and put the latest comment section in front of Mandy. Moreover, this isn't a novel. This is reality. The Hank family is on the decline. It's hard to say whether Hank can continue to be a mighty CEO, and Yo-Yo isn't an innocent little white flower either. This group of netizens has long been diagnosed with hating stupidity. Don't worry. Yo-Yo won't be able to jump around for long. A week after that, Yo-Yo registered an account by herself and started shooting short videos with Hank to show their love. In the first video, Hank cooperated with her very well, and the two of them showed their sweet love. The comment section was also normal, with people shouting that it was sweet and asking Yo-Yo to shoot more if she could. In the second video, it was also a routine display of their daily sweet moments, like Hank picking her up and dropping her off from work, having meals together and so on. The comment section began to complain, saying that they didn't want to watch these. It was similar to other couple bloggers and there was nothing special. They wanted to see the love story of a wealthy family, something different. The third video got the same reaction, and the traffic dropped sharply. Yo-Yo began to get restless. That night, someone saw that Hank sent 99,999 roses. Moreover, all the display screens in the business district square were projected with Hank Yo-Yo. The scene was very romantic. It had already gone viral on the internet before Yo-Yo could post the video herself. When Mandy saw it, she immediately called me to complain. Are they crazy? Hank asked you for money before, and now he's just throwing money around? Has the capital flow improved? I twirled the pen in my hand. You don't understand. This is the pure love warrior. This is romance. A kind of crazy and reckless love. Suddenly there was no sound on the other side of the phone. After a long while, Mandy's grumbling voice came. Damn it. Hearing you say that, it's quite touching. I almost envied them. I chuckled. Should I also arrange something like this for Miss Mandy? Forget it, forget it. It's too embarrassing. I have rheumatism and can't stand anything cheesy. I can't be romantic at all. Goodbye, little Jolene. After joking with Mandy, I worked overtime again. The next day, I flew abroad because of the project. It took me a month on a business trip to finalize the new project. When I came back, the process of Yo-Yo and Hank showing their love had reached the stage where the CEO spent a lot of money to buy luxury goods for his pampered wife. The progress was slower than I expected. It seemed that Hank was really having financial difficulties, but I knew that Hank had already discovered the benefits of creating a certain image. He planned to use videos to prove the financial situation of the Hank family and dispel the doubts about the financial problems of the Hank family. After all, the reason why he couldn't win projects now was indeed that the funds of the Hank family were tied up and the partners didn't dare to take risks. However, others wouldn't give them a chance. For example, the opponents who were eyeing the Hank family covetously, and the employees who were disappointed with the Hank family. Sure enough, the cleaning aunt who had been fired stood out. The video was probably taken by her children. In the video, she said that when she was mopping the floor, she didn't see Yo-Yo coming from behind and accidentally bumped into each other. Yo-Yo, being lighter in weight, fell to the ground at once. Just because of this reason, she was severely criticized by Yo-Yo and was directly fired. Once this video became popular, Yo-Yo's image of a pampered little wife collapsed directly. This was just the beginning. Other employees of the Hank family who had been fired by Yo-Yo logged in one after another and spoke out online, announcing what Yo-Yo had done. Even the partners of the Hank family got involved, complaining about their grievances and questioning Yo-Yo's work ability as a secretary. At this time, the netizens were all angry and rushed to Yo-Yo's account to scold her. Even Hank, the pure love CEO, was regarded as brainless. Look how quickly things changed. Some people even raised a soul-searching question. Under the leadership of such a president, will the Hank family really not decline? The answer is yes. Some knowledgeable netizens began to expose the publicly announced projects that the Hank family had signed this year. There were very few, not even half of what it was in previous years, and insiders also said that there were quite a number of projects with contract violations. Hank had paid a lot of liquidated damages out of his own pocket. As a result, Hank himself still owed a lot of loans to the bank. With such an economic situation, he was still spending money to make his girlfriend happy. Even the foolishly devoted guy in the cartoon would call him Big Brother when seeing this. This is no longer a pure love warrior. It completely desecrates this term. There were more and more doubts about Hank, and the stock price of the Hank family also began to plummet. After this situation lasted for a week, Mr. Tang exposed the gambling agreement. In the previous month, Hank accompanied Yo-Yo to shoot many videos showing their love. For more complicated videos, besides spending money, they had to be filmed from different angles repeatedly. For a CEO, this took up too much of his time. As a result, this month, Hank didn't meet the requirements signed in the gambling agreement, and the consequence of not meeting the requirements was that 10% of the shares belonged to Mr. Tang. Coupled with the 5% of the shares I sold to Mr. Tang before, Hank was no longer the largest shareholder. The board of directors directly removed him from his position. After the new president was elected, the first thing he did was to fire Yo-Yo. To prevent Hank from causing any more trouble, the board of directors didn't arrange a position for Hank either. He only held shares but no longer worked in the Hank family. Of course, there were also many people offering to buy the shares in his hands. Hank wasn't completely stupid. He didn't sell them. After the Hank family's official website announced this news, everyone cheered. Since the CEO was gone, they couldn't show their love anymore. Hank then proposed to cancel the account. Yo-Yo immediately disagreed. After all, no one would choose a 50-year-old professor instead of Eric, who is rich and good-looking. Yo-Yo, feeling aggrieved and excited, broke free from Hank's hand and directly ran through the traffic lights. The car coming from a distance couldn't brake in time and crashed straight into her. Hank reacted quickly and rushed forward to push Yo-Yo away. Yo-Yo was pushed to the ground and narrowly escaped, while Hank had his leg injured by the wheel of the vehicle. When I heard this news from Mandy, who was always eager to know other people's affairs, Hank hadn't come out of the operating room yet. After Hank's condition stabilized, he sent me a message to let me know he was okay. Jolene, I received timely treatment and my leg was saved. Don't worry. Could you come and see me? 77. I finally went to visit Hank. When I arrived at the ward, I didn't see Yo-Yo. Hank was alone, leaning against the hospital bed, looking out of the window with dull eyes. He looked a bit lonely, and there was no trace of the cold and noble look he had in the past. Hearing my movement, he came to his senses and greeted me. Jolene, you're here. Sit down quickly. Looking at the thin and dispirited Hank, I didn't know where to start. After holding back for a long time, I just asked, do you regret it? Hank was stunned when he heard my question, and then smiled bitterly. Regret? What's the use of that? There's no turning back in life. I interrupted him, you've lost everything, but you got the love you wanted. Isn't this what you wanted? Hank pointed at his leg and said, the doctor said although my leg was saved, I'll limp when I walk in the future. He covered his face with his hands and laughed loudly. I traded my health, wealth, and everything I had for love. And then? Then Yo-Yo broke up with me. She said she would listen to her mother and marry a supermarket owner. How ridiculous I am. Hank laughed and then gradually began to sob softly. I didn't comfort Hank. I just stood by the bed looking at him coldly. After all the twists and turns, Yo-Yo still chose to marry that supermarket owner while Hank was no longer the richest man as in the previous life. I waited until Hank calmed down and then said faintly, you had many better choices, but you didn't choose them. Life is not like a novel. Love can be passionate, but it has never been about selfless dedication. A healthy relationship won't drag you from the top to the mud, but will make both of you climb to the top together and move towards a better future. Hank, it's time for you to wake up. After saying all this, I turned around and left the ward. Behind me were Hank's uncontrollable cries. 1 month later, as soon as Mandy entered my office, she asked, guess who I saw downstairs? I cooperated and asked her, who? Hank. I saw him wandering downstairs. Could he be here to see you? Hearing the name Hank, I was startled. What would he want from me? Mandy held up 2 fingers. There are 2 possibilities. 1. He's here to borrow money from you. 2. He wants to court you. I frowned. Maybe it's the first one, but doesn't he still have shares in Hank's family? Although there are fewer than before, the dividends should be enough to pay off the debts, right? Mandy shook her head. No, no, no. You're behind the times. Hank was tricked by Yo-Yo. She borrowed usury in Hank's name before. Now Yo-Yo has run back to the village and got married. The creditors couldn't find her, so they all came to Hank. I was a bit puzzled. Why would Yo-Yo borrow usury? Wasn't it because of those videos showing their love? A lot of the funds for those were borrowed by Yo-Yo. She thought she was famous now and that making money was just a matter of time. She called it the initial investment. Her way of thinking is really advanced. Exactly. So Hank had no choice but to sell his shares to pay off the debts. Even if he didn't sell them all, there wouldn't be much left. And he still owes a lot to the bank. After hearing this, I became more certain that Hank was here to borrow money. Mandy became curious and dragged me downstairs forcefully. I was dragged all the way in front of Hank. When Hank saw me, he looked flustered. Jolene, why did you come down? I didn't want to exchange pleasantries and went straight to the point. What are you doing here? I was just passing by. Hank touched his nose. Yes, I happened to be passing by and just wanted to ask if you've eaten. Do you want to have a meal together? Mandy preemptively said, having a meal? To have a meal with our president Jolene, you need to make an appointment, okay? Hank explained in a flustered manner, no, it's not for business. It's just an ordinary meal. Oh, Mandy raised her tone. Then it's not very convenient to have a private meal. Our president Jolene has a boyfriend now. It's not appropriate for her to have a private meal with you alone. Mandy emphasized the word boyfriend heavily. Hank was a bit shocked. Jolene has a boyfriend? How is that possible? I twitched the corners of my mouth and didn't deny it. Hank looked dejected and asked, still not giving up, who is it? My brother. Mandy quickly replied, my 188 cm, tall, healthy, successful, wealthy, extremely handsome, and extremely gentle brother. After all, our Jolene is so outstanding. How could she be with a loser? She should at least find someone better than her. Like someone in poor health, for example, with bad legs, or someone with financial problems, like being in debt. To be with such a person would be like a bodhisattva coming down to save the world and help all living beings. Mandy's mouth was like a machine gun, completely ignoring Hank's feelings. Hank couldn't laugh at all this time. His hanging hand clenched into a fist as he tried hard to stay calm. I held back Mandy, who still wanted to continue, and politely said goodbye to Hank. Well, if there's nothing else, I'll get back to work. After saying that, I dragged Mandy and walked back. Halfway through, I turned around and added, next time, don't just happen to be passing by again. When we got back to the office, Hank had already left. Mandy came up to me with a look of seeking praise. Well, how was it? Wasn't my performance just now worthy of praise? I narrowed my eyes. I haven't even settled accounts with you yet. When did I become your sister-in-law? Mandy gave two awkward smiles and shrank her head back. I just wanted to make Hank angry. Otherwise, would we have to watch a scene of him trying hard to win you back? Our president Jolene is out of his league now, okay? I couldn't help laughing and pinched Mandy's face. You're right. The person worthy of me must be someone as outstanding as me in every aspect. Mandy froze all over and took my hand off her face. Well, I suddenly remembered that I have a class to attend. Work hard, strive for it. She made a cheering gesture and left in a hurry. I smiled and shook my head, then sat down in front of my desk again. There was a pile of documents stacked like a mountain in front of me. Without hesitation, I plunged right into them. Just keep working hard. On the journey of life, we will meet that other half who will walk hand in hand with us and support each other. I will, you will, and everyone will. The end.